What's good with y'all? I wanted to kind of share some thoughts I've been having lately about some particularly hot topics. I'm going to make some qualifying statements throughout this little video just because I want to try my best not to be misunderstood. But we'll see, If y'all like what I got to say, hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you feel. Share it if you think others might enjoy what I'm saying. But let's get into it. So, for the past 2 years, due to obviously COVID restrictions, I haven't got out and been mingling around as much as I used to, much as I'm used to. You know what I'm saying? And so it's been a lot of social media, a lot of kind of paying attention to what's been going on in different spaces, what people have been saying, how people have been responding to it and whatnot. And it occurs to me now that maybe my outlook has been a little bit skewed by that imbalance. Feel what I'm saying? So in my life and dealing with other individuals, just generally speaking, I've been blessed. A lot of meaningful interaction with a lot of great people. I spent time enjoying myself for the most part here in the United States. With regards to dating, obviously, like everybody, I've had my hits and misses, but generally speaking, finding a fit and beautiful woman with whom to spend time with has not been a huge problem for me. Outside of during COVID restrictions where I haven't been leaving the house much. I never really was much of an online dating, online pickup type of dude, but I never had a problem walking up on the most beautiful woman in the room and expressing myself. And, you know what I'm saying? Usually ends in us having a nice time. You know what I'm saying? Now, what has also changed in recent years, for me anyway, is what constitutes as a nice time. Things were a bit more laid back before. Things, not a whole lot of expectations, if you know what I mean. So I've changed in more ways than one. I've never really been a short-term type of dude. Never really been a smash and dash type. I've had my encounters, but I prefer at least to maintain positive relationships with people that I enjoy being around. I'm not really just kind of a hit and quit it type of dude. That's never really been my thing, not even back in high school. But I wasn't always thinking about what kind of wife are you going to be. And that's changed my outlook quite a bit. And so with me being largely in the house for these last 2 years, looking at social media, a lot of what's on social media, though it's pulled my coat to things that I have seen in past interactions that I maybe didn't put two and two together and connect the pattern, pardon me. a lot of what I've seen on social media has been really mostly focused on the negative aspects, the toxicity and whatnot. Really kind of putting just that under a microscope. I mean, you could say maybe, it's the people you follow, nigga. You know what I'm saying? The circles you frequent. I won't dispute that necessarily, but I also try to keep my eye on what's going on outside of my friend group. Look at current events and whatnot. And I think there's probably an imbalance. Just looking at social media and trying to gauge what's actually going on out there now. People like Kevin Samuels, rest in peace, OG. One of the things I liked about him is he brought statistics. And I ain't just bite down on him just because he said them. No, I went to government census websites and different places and kind of looked and cross-referenced to see if those numbers checked out. And by and large, they did. Which is why I don't think we've heard anybody disputing the statistics that man brought forth. And some of them are scary. Like, as a man who does kind of want a certain type of family dynamic, if you look at just those statistics and you combine it with the kind of attitudes and the kind of trends and the kind of mentalities you see portrayed and put forth on social media, if you put those two things together, they paint a certain picture. And it may not be the whole picture, because like I said, when I'm out and about, I don't necessarily have all of these problems going out and dealing with potential partners in a romantic sense specifically. Have I had problems with what some might deem masculine energy coming from black women in the past? Sure. Not to the extent that it made me feel like shit is hopeless. And that's never been the reason I left somebody. You know what I'm saying? By the same token, I was just talking to my homegirl around the corner. I took a little walk. My homegirl owned a store. She a boss. You know what I'm saying? Take that term how you want to. I was just saying, you know what? I didn't grow up in a traditional household. Furthermore, I wasn't raised with an extended family where there were a lot of men in leadership roles in the family. Grandma was the boss. Flat out. And she said, you know what, me too. And I've seen that a lot within the black community. I've really not seen much different than that. And pretty much everybody I know within the black community, within certain income brackets, if we've talked about the dynamic of their extended family, Big Mama. Big Mama the boss. You know what I'm saying? And so I grew up feeling like that's the norm. The women in the family run shit. I was essentially raised by 3 wonderfully amazing women, my mother and her 2 sisters. And I would not be the stand-up man I am today without their influence. And nobody can ever take that away from them. And I do have uncles that played parts in my upbringing, albeit much smaller parts. But you get what I'm saying. as far as I know it, the black community is largely matriarchal. And that was the norm for me and all of my people, all my friends, everybody I knew anyway, growing up. And I've lived a few different places within the United States. I'm a friendly guy. I'll walk up and talk to you. If I get used to seeing you around, I might just walk up on you and become your friend for no reason. Because why not? And so I talk to a lot of people. At least I was when I was getting out and about. And I am starting to a lot more now that things are calming down with regards to COVID and whatnot. But still got to be cautious. I had that new variant last month and it took me out for the whole month. And so you still got to, I am not about to be out moving and shaking like I was 2.5, 3 years ago. You know what I'm saying? And so my sample size isn't tiny. You feel me? And so in my dealings with black women, relationships of my own, them bossing up in one way or another never really struck me as a problem because that's how I was raised. As a matter of fact, a formidable woman still find it real sexy to me even. I like that shit. Yeah, run your business. At the same time, though, as I'm getting older, starting to think about how I want things to go in my household, with my family, with my children. Hopefully, I don't have any yet, but you know, fingers crossed. I definitely don't want my children to grow up the way I did or the way any of my friends did. We all grew up in single parent households. I got one close homie that was raised by his dad, and his dad is man is passed. His dad was an amazing man. Rest in peace to him. Nothing but respect. I got one homeboy. But still a single parent household. And I love my mother dearly. And we talk 3-4 times a week over the phone, you know what I'm saying? We talk about all the same things I'm talking to y'all now about. We talk about all these same things and much more. I don't want her to be a voice that supersedes mine in my household. She's not going to be Big Mama, the boss of the family in my household. Not saying she wouldn't be qualified to be that to my children, but no. In my household, I want what daddy says to be the final word. Flat out. That's a desire of mine. And I've spent years learning myself and developing my identity as a man and coming to the realization that no, my mom, I don't want my mom to be Big Mama over my family. I want her to be a part of the family. Absolutely. Grandmama. Spoil the kids. Hype them up on sugar so they could terrorize us all night when you bring them home. I say I'm with that now, but if when it happens, I might feel a little bit differently. But one way or another, she's not about to be Big Mama over my household. I don't want that. Like it was when I was a kid with her mother. I don't want that. And of the lasting relationships I've had, one of them, I was the sole provider. I played that role. I didn't have the opportunity to in earlier relationships. I didn't have the resources, nor was I in a dynamic that called for that. But I had one relationship where I didn't drive it in that direction. That's just how things went. You know, you settle on a dynamic that works for y'all, and that's what we ended up settling on, where I was the sole provider. And you know what? Even as someone with no direct experience with that relationship dynamic, I gotta say, it felt right. It was easy. It felt natural. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew what I was doing. I just knew, like, all right, support the household financially and make sure everybody's safe. Bring the money and the security. It just clicked. I felt more at peace. And I didn't even have a partner who was giving me the feminine energy in return that men are saying is now, you know what I'm saying, that many men are being more outspoken about now as being a prerequisite. But I was just doing it, and she was slouching on her end, but it's still just me handling that, not having to worry about us bringing our two halves together when the bills was due, not having to defer on how the financial end was being taken care of and how best the home was going to be protected and secured, not having to defer those things. It felt right. I was more at peace. I was more at ease, and it just worked. I did it, and it was easy, and this is coming from someone who wasn't raised that way. I didn't see much of that growing up. None of my friends had that. I don't have any homies now who have that dynamic in their household. And I had never done it before. But when it came time to do it, it's almost innate. You know what I'm saying? Now, obviously, I had to learn how to earn money and pay bills, and like I've lived on my own for a long time, and so that I knew how to do those things, balance a budget and so forth. You know what I'm saying? And you know what else? I don't like it being a conversation or much less an argument about who's doing what chores. I mean, obviously, I'm going to take out the trash, I'm going to cut the lawn, I'm going to build what needs to be built, I'm going to fix what needs to be fixed, but I don't want to argue with you about whose turn it is to wash the dishes. I don't. And I've not ruled out the possibility that maybe I'm just painting my perfect picture of what I think a relationship would be, what I would want a relationship to be, and trying to project that outward like it should be like this. I'm not ruling that out. I don't necessarily know that that's not the case. And I'm open to other possibilities because you kind of have to be. You know, you don't make your plan on how life is supposed to go and expect it to just go that way. But I'm just saying, like, there were certain things about that dynamic that when it happened, and I didn't really ever even expect it. As a matter of fact, I used to be a champion of the 50-50 lifestyle. But when I found myself in a more traditional relationship dynamic, it felt real good. Even when I was with a partner who was not holding up her end. I've never been able to blow smoke rings. And so I kind of understand what a lot of the brothers, save yourself black men. I understand what a lot of them were saying. I understood what Kevin Samuels was saying, because by that time, when I was becoming aware of these YouTube channels and, you know what I'm saying, these things, and I'm watching Danica Marie and Chantel Simone, shout out to y'all, all of y'all as well, Richie Mack, you know what I'm saying, Zoom to Thailand. Like, by the time I was being made aware of these channels and this content, I had that experience and really kind of gotten a taste for this traditional lifestyle that was previously entirely unfamiliar with. And so what they were saying, it resonated with me. It clicked with me. You know what I'm saying? And even though I had never really had a whole lot to complain about with regards to my dealings with black women, it wasn't like the stuff they were saying seemed like it was out of left field. I had seen these things. I had experienced these things. I just wasn't necessarily as bothered by these things as maybe someone who had, let me think about how I say this. I wasn't necessarily as bothered by these things as maybe someone who'd had less access to the things we say we want from our interactions with black women. Yeah, I deal with black women chewing my ear off for issues that seem like, okay, yeah, but why don't we just solve this right now? And they just, I've dealt with that, but I never really, to me, it was normal. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't no huge issue. I dealt with women wanting to be bosses and not wanting to really cater to me in more ways than just sexually my whole life. And these are the things that a lot of these more vocal brothers now are saying they're wanting to get away from. You know what I'm saying? By going abroad and looking for wives in countries where the gender roles are a lot more ironclad in their culture, in their society. And when I was younger, when all I really wanted from black women was companionship, not necessarily temporary companionship, but not necessarily lifelong either, as someone who had access to the more beautiful few, perhaps I was a bit more content or complacent with what I have going on here in the States. And then it just so happens we get locked down for 2 years, those interactions lessen up, and at the same time I'm growing into someone who wants to look more lifelong, level of long term, and I'm starting to see, well, do I really, really want to try to do the whole marriage family thing, doing that 50-50 thing and deferring? Or would I rather have a more traditional dynamic? And I'm thinking the answer is the latter. As I kind of finish rounding myself out as a man, because I feel like through my 20s, I was learning about the world, my world around me, my surroundings. Through my 30s, I was becoming myself. I was learning, I was coming into my own. And now that I'm rounding out my 30s, I feel confident in who I am as a man. I know me. I trust me. And I know what I want. You know what I'm saying? To an extent. Now, we're always learning and we're always evolving, and I'm open to that. But by and large, most of the things in my life, you feel me? Like, I know where I'm at and I know where I'm going and I know where I want to go. And I got them things lined up. My ducks are in a row now. And it takes a little while for us, man, to get there, but we get there. And would I be as content with the more common dynamic that we have here in the American black community long term? And I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be. Honestly, I don't really want to do that 50-50 shit. I don't want to defer. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to split the chores. And I don't want to split the bills. I want us to play to our strengths in that regard. I am better at building and or fixing things than any woman I've ever been in a relationship with. I am more equipped to lift heavy things and move heavy things than any woman I've ever been in a relationship with. I have always made a lot more money than every woman I've ever been in a relationship with. All the way back from like when we were 18 and 19, working super entry-level jobs. I was just getting it more. Even from back then. With those things in mind, that 50-50 shit don't really make sense, but it didn't matter as much back then. You know what I'm saying? And so when I start seeing passport bros talk about, oh, over here, not only are they all gorgeous like that, but they were raised with strict gender dynamics. They were raised to be wives, as they say. And they're saying a lot of men should get their passport, go over there and find your wife over there. I'm going to get my passport because I want to travel regardless. But I have some questions about, I don't know if I necessarily want to go find a wife over there. And now, obviously, the passport bros, and this was a misconception. I've watched enough of the content and read enough to know that they're not talking about going over there, finding a wife, and bringing her back. No, they're talking about going over there and becoming a part of their culture over there, finding a wife, and staying over there with their new wife and her family. That's what they talking about. And it sounds nice, but I am monolingual. I don't speak a lick of Espanol. I'm not saying that I'll always be that way. I'm about to go get my passport now. I'm not going to learn Spanish in the next couple of months, or Thai, or, any of the languages of the places I'm thinking about going. That's a concern. That's a concern for me. I know how to maneuver in the hood here if I happen to be in a city that I'm not from, and I happen to wander into the hood, not unknowingly, find myself there. I know how to maneuver, how to interact with people, how to keep myself safe. I imagine that'd be a little bit more difficult in a place where I don't speak the language and am unfamiliar with the culture. That might be a little tough. So I have these concerns, and I hear these stories about the devil's breath and all these things. I'm not a small dude. I'm 6'3", 200 pounds, and I know how to handle myself. You know what I'm saying? But you can't punch no bullet. Can't drop it on his neck either. And so I have these concerns about certain places that I'm thinking about going. You know what I'm saying? It's not a big deal, but if you go to the neighborhood where I grew up, not knowing nothing, not even the language, and you coming from a place where everybody knows you got way more money than everybody here, you might not walk out of there. You probably won't walk out of there. And I've always had this thing, and it's programming, I acknowledge that, but I've always kind of seen myself settling down with a beautiful black woman, a beautiful American black woman, and starting a family and raising some kids, and us having similar values and things like that, and passing it not being an issue of whose value system we're passing down to the kids, and us being able to relate to each other on a deep level, you know what I'm saying, from having similar upbringings. And, you know, I don't know that that's necessarily any different, though, than a lot of women growing up thinking that Prince Charming is out there and telling each other that every woman deserves a Prince Charming, aka a wealthy man. Like, there's one of us out there for all of y'all. Like, me thinking that there's necessarily a gorgeous, a feminine, friendly, cooperative black woman out there that's just waiting for me. I don't know that that's necessarily any different. You know, we all grow up with fairy tale fantasies, and so, you know, I'm not opposed to the idea of, you know, retiring in Thailand. I heard the golf courses in Pattaya. Whew, shout out to Richie Mack, because that, thank you, bro, because you're the one kind of sent me down the rabbit hole to begin with. I saw your Zoom to Thailand videos. I was like, ooh, that looks wonderful, you know? I'm going to definitely go out there and hit the links, for sure. And the difference between needing, what is it, like more than $2 million to retire here in the States versus being able to go and retire there early with $250,000. Whether I'm looking for a wife or not, that all sounds lovely to me. Though I've not had much of a problem accessing beautiful black women here, it doesn't mean I'd be entirely against increasing my odds by going somewhere where the ratio of gorgeous women to everybody else is like this instead of like this. So that's one thing I will not deny. Gorgeous women, particularly gorgeous black women, compared to all the rest of the black women, they're a little scarce. There are specific reasons why I've had access to those few, but they are few. It's true that the majority of black women in this country are overweight, and pardon me for sounding harsh, I don't want to settle down with a fat woman. Health complications down the line, passing on unhealthy habits to our children. Those are things I think about now. I do want to settle down with a woman that is fit. That is a big concern. I'm a man. I think, and on top of being a man, I'm a man who was an economics major in college. I think in probabilities. Even if I have a good shot at this 2% of the women here that happen to be fit and beautiful, that doesn't mean it's not a better idea to go over there where 52% of the women are fit and beautiful. See how the math is math in there, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not locked into the idea if she absolutely has to be a American black woman. There are black Colombian women. There are black Asian women or dark skinned. You know what I'm saying? And I hear Ghana is Ethiopia. I'll never forget when Jamie Foxx said, I went out there and I seen a whole pack of Halle Berrys. Well, man, you know? And so, no, I haven't bitten down all the way on the whole travel bros lifestyle and decided that that's necessarily right for me. But honestly, it's because I really just don't know enough yet. I got to go out there and just, So I'm asking myself just as much as I'm asking y'all, I suppose. Do I want to be a travel bro?